All right, guys, welcome to another live stream. Welcome to another live stream. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. So, in today's live stream, we're going to talk about why Social Security is not enough, why it's not going to be enough. And yeah, I mean, this is not a new topic. I've spoke on this topic before, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard that Social Security is dwindling. It's not going to, I mean, it may be there in the future, but if it is, it's not going to be a lot of money. And I've recently just found an article. The title of the article, and I'll share it just in a minute. It says Social Security benefits get a COLA, which is COLA stands for Cost of Living Adjustment, in 2025 that's filled with good news and bad news. And once we go over the article, we'll go over the good news and the bad news, right? All right, but so I got a statistic here, and it says, as of 2024, the average monthly Social Security retirement benefit is approximately $1,848 for retired workers. $1,848, right? Social Security, something that's supposed to take care of you when you can't work. And actually, let me do a quick mic check before I continue, just to make sure my mic is working and I'm not talking to myself. Give me just a sec. Give me just a sec. Work. And all right. Actually, let me do a quick mic check before I continue. Okay, cool. Mic is working. All right. Yeah. So $1,848. This is what's supposed to be taking care of you when you can't work anymore. And yeah. So if we really look at it, let's get into why Social Security is actually given out so late, right? Because most people, well, not most people, you get Social Security around 62 to 66, somewhere around that time frame. And, I think the earlier you take it, the less you get. But typically people are supposed to take it around like 62 to 66. And yeah, and you got to think about it. Most people don't. Their life ends around most people life ends in their 70s. If you're lucky, you go into your 80s, right? But like mid 70s to late 70s is kind of when people check out. So really, you're paying towards Social Security for when most people start working around that maybe some people would start at 18, but mostly it's like that 21 area when you graduate from college and you get your first job and things like that. So you're contributing to this bucket for 40 plus years, but you really only get to benefit from it. Maybe let's say you take it at 62. You probably check out around 75. You only really benefit from it for 13 years. And the thing is, you're only getting 1848. So you've been contributing to this thing called Social Security, and you only really get a benefit for it. You only get a benefit from it for like 13 years when you've been paying 40 years to this bucket. So that's a sad part. And then two, you're not getting that much money. I mean, if we look at the average rent cost today, I mean, you're looking at, 2,000 to 2,500. That's typically rent costs, and it just depends on what you're getting, right? That's probably like a single family home, maybe like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And then I know apartments, I mean, that's typical 1-bedroom, 2,000 to 2,500 if you want to live decently. Now, another statistic here is the average person doesn't pay off their mortgage until 55 to 65. So if you're paying a mortgage up until you're 65 and you're retiring at 62, I mean, that's 3 years where your Social Security doesn't even cover the amount of your rent, the amount of what you're paying for your mortgage. Obviously, you probably do get other Social Security benefits like Medicare, Medicaid, and things like that. But I mean, most of that Social Security check is going to your mortgage. And when we get into the article, we're going to see why. I mean, we just literally got the lowest adjustment when it comes to cost of living in the most ever, right? I think that's what they said, and we'll get into the article. But yeah, so what the thing that I do, so how do you combat this, right? So people are like, oh, well, okay, well, Social Security is not going to be enough. What do I do? And for most people, they just work the 9 to 5 and they don't have anything on the side going. So that's one of the first mistakes. You need something on the side going, whether it's a side business, side investments that are going to help you in your retirement years when Social Security is not enough. But then also, I think too, people are lacking, I said this yesterday, but people are lacking skill set to make more money. And the reason being is because I think you rise to your your ability to make more money rises to the financial environment that you're in. So, for instance, if I'm paying 1,200 a month for rent, I'm probably not living in such a good area. Two, if I'm around broke people, I'm probably going to be broke. And then three, if I'm using my spare time to not do anything productive, I'm probably not going to have any side incomes or any side businesses or things like that. So that's why when I first moved out of my apartment, I told myself I want to put myself in a place where I'm paying a lot for rent. And the reason was not to get rid of my money. The reason was not to just live a lavish lifestyle. And I don't really consider it lavish. I just put myself in an area where, you pay a decent amount for rent. It's not over my means, but it's not substantially below like my means. So, and the reason why I did that is because, again, when we talk about you rise to the occasion to when it comes to you rise to the occasion, or the level that you rise to your occasion depends on the competition you have around you. And my competition in this instance would be the amount of rent I pay, right? That competition. I'm in an area where I'm paying a decent amount of rent, or I'm in an area where I'm not paying it. And what that's going to do, two things are going to happen. One, you either end up going in a lot of debt and you sink, or you swim, right? You're able to find out ways to make more money. You either get a higher paying job, you start doing things on the side that's going to bring you more money, and it kind of just gets the mind flowing. The whole point of that was, I put myself in a situation where I'm paying more money for my necessities, but it gets my creative brain thinking, because I'm saying, okay, well, I have to pay $2,400 for rent. I can't make $1,200 every 2 weeks, right? And it kind of forces you to make that jump and find ways that are going to make you more money, right? And typically, it's taking on a senior position at work, or I mean, that's probably one of the things. If you're if you're working that 9 to 5, it's typically taking a senior position, manager position, director position. And then outside of that, it's also, if you have to pay more money for rent, that means you're going to also look for ways outside of your 9 to 5 to make more money. So that could be investments, crypto, stocks, real estate. So I think you rise to the level of competition you have. So I would suggest early on making sure to put yourself in it doesn't have to be so uncomfortable, but you don't want to be very comfortable in your financial position. I would say putting yourself in a position where you have more responsibilities will help you combat this Social Security problem that we're going to have. And another thing that I do, I don't have a 401k, and I did that on purpose as well. So one, I put myself in a place where I have to pay more for rent. I have to pay, and typically you're right, if you have to pay more for rent, everything else is more expensive. Groceries, parking, all this other stuff, right? You have to pay more money. And again, two things are going to happen. You're either going to go broke, and or you're going to survive. And typically it's two options, right? The bad option is either the worst or the best. And for me, I found that is the best, the best environment to create something great, or get the best results, because when you're just in that, when you're just making enough, and you're making enough to pay for what you need, you kind of don't have the incentive to do better financially. So so that's why I made the decision to move downtown, pay a little higher in rent, because also the environment too. You typically have people that are doing stuff with their life, opposed to, just getting by. So another thing I did was too, I didn't have a 401k. I said, okay, I really don't believe, like, I know you get the match, and people really get sold on the match. And I think, if you do a 401k, why not get the match? But the thing about the 401k, if you put 4 to 6% of your income and they match it, so you're getting like 12%, right? And then the compound interest and things like that. But I said, okay, well, the same thing with the 401k. There was two options for me. If I didn't do the 401k, there was two options for me. One, I don't have a retirement, because if I'm not doing the 401k, if I'm not opting to do the 401k at my 9 to 5, if I don't do it, that means, and I don't do anything alternatively, that means I don't have any money for retirement, right? Or I do something to supplement my retirement, my 401k. And like I said, typically when you go that route, you either get the best situation or you get the worst situation. And I like being in those situations where it's like it's either the worst or the best. Because if you're a motivated person, you're most likely going to end up doing something. If you have the right mindset, you're going to most likely figure out a way. And whatever way you figure out tends to be better than the way that you got rid of. I got rid of the 401k. So, and I'm a motivated person. I put myself in a situation where I'm going to learn how to build up a retirement fund. What that outcome brings is typically going to be better than whatever your 401k was going to bring you. So, yeah, it's very important to put yourself in situations where you're going to challenge yourself, and and you're not going to be so comfortable, because once you get into a comfortable seat, you're going to do things like depend on the Social Security to take care of you at retirement. And, you're running into that issue where it's just not enough, right? So let me share my screen so we could talk about this article that I seen. So it says Social Security, and my light, I hate when it does that. You see, like, I put my hand up here and it's light, but then it's like, it gets dark. But whatever. It says Social Security benefits get a COLA in 2025 that's filled with good news and bad. Okay, so it says there's been a lot of speculation about Social Security's 2025 cost of living adjustment, but on October 10th it came to an end. That's because the Social Security Administration announced a 2.5 raise for 2025, bringing the average monthly benefit up by $50. Not a lot of money, right? Can't do much with $50. If you're someone who's dependent on Social Security, you may still be processing this information. And you should know that while 2.5% COLA may not seem like much to write home about, there's good news in the announcement. So they said there's good news, so let's see what the good news is. This is the bad news first. Always start off with the bad news. Let's start off with the not so great news. Social Securities are getting their smallest COLA in years in 2025. And this is what I stated earlier. And this is no surprise. Our debt is in the trillions for the U.S., and it looks like it's going up a lot higher, and also inflation. But perhaps an even bigger problem. Okay, so let's start off with the bad news. Social Security benefits are getting their smallest COLA in 25 years in 2025. A larger COLA would have meant a larger monthly paycheck for you to enjoy. But perhaps an even bigger problem is that your 2.5% COLA is unlikely to keep pace with inflation. And I just said that. And the reason boils down to a huge flaw in the way Social Security COLAs are calculated. Social Security COLAs are based on third quarter changes in the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. Am I saying that right? Clerical. I mean, I guess clerical workers. I think I'm saying that right. Wrong. But anyway, it's early in the morning. But as you might imagine, the costs that Social Security recipients typically face aren't the same as the costs urban wage earners commonly bear. Yeah, that consumer price index, the price of consumer goods, things are going up, and I'm not sure. I feel like consumer goods are going up. So why would we get a lower adjustment, right? But as you might imagine, the costs that Social Security recipients typically face aren't the same as the cost of urban wage earners commonly bear. For seniors, healthcare tends to be a giant expense, but it's not heavily weighted factor in the CPI. W. Okay, so this is actually interesting. So the CPI index is not heavily weighted towards healthcare needs, healthcare expenses, but that's the giant expense. And that's why I'm always, when they come out with these CPI, PPI, and all these indexes, percentages, I always feel like they sway them to fit the narrative, whatever the narrative is for them. And when I say them, speaking like government and those type of agencies and things like that. It just seems like those indexes seem to, like, for instance, in order for us to have cut interest rates, because remember, we just did an interest rate cut, which was like 50 basis points. And we're probably going to get a 50 basis points or 25 basis points in November. And then going into December, we'll probably get another one, which would be great. But we can only get that. We can only have gotten that if the inflation numbers were trending down to that 2%. Because remember, Jerome Powell was saying, oh, well, I don't want to, slash interest rates if inflation numbers are not going down. Because remember, they increase interest rates to tame inflation. So if inflation numbers are not going towards what the Fed wants, they wouldn't have, they wouldn't have slashed interest rates last month. And so for me, it just seems like, oh, well, we're going into an election year and things like that. And it just so happens that these numbers were trending the right way so we could get those interest rate cuts. So I don't know. I feel like it for me, I'm not sure who handles those numbers, but anyway, it says for seniors, healthcare tends to be a giant expense, but it's not heavily weighted factor in the CPIW. Meanwhile, for workers, transportation, which carries more weight in the CPI, does tend to be a larger expense, but you might spend less on transportation as a retiree without commute. Okay. Yeah, and that does make sense. You're probably not going to commute as much if you're retired. Because of this decline in transportation costs may not do much to improve your financial picture, whereas for an urban wage worker, it has more of an impact. Therefore, using an index like the CPIW to determine COLAs puts you in a position where you don't benefit as much, right? And they're saying like, okay, well, we're only going to increase the cost of living adjustment if, we see cost of living going up. But they focus on things like transportation to increase for people that are retiring. But they don't commute as much, right? So why would you use that input to like the transportation, and what else did they say? Meanwhile, for workers, transportation. Why would you use transportation as one of the main factors when retirees are really not commuting that much? and not put healthcare in there, right? It's not heavily weighted on healthcare. You would think healthcare would be the most, the thing they use the most to calculate the COLA adjustment. Therefore, using an index like that is not puts you in a position where you don't benefit as much. Worse yet, critics have blasted this problematic method of calculating COLAs for years to no availability. I'm not sure what they were trying to say there. So not only might you be looking at a minimal income boost for 2025, but your 2026 raise might similarly fall short. All right, so that's the bad news. They're calculating the COLA wrong, so you're not going to get as much. So what's the good news? A smaller Social Security COLA for 2025 may not seem like something to celebrate, but on the upside is that a smaller COLA is a sign of cooling inflation. That means you may be looking at a less expensive groceries, gas, utilities in the new year, as some examples, and that could be a very good thing for your finances. But unfortunately, the good news ends there. So if you're worried about getting a buy on a 2.5 raise, take steps to improve your financial situation. And this is what we talked about. I don't think you should be depending on Social Security or 401k. So again, I go into that situation where it's like, this is for me, and this is what I found out works the best. Put yourself in a situation where you can either get the worst scenario or you could get the best scenario. And for me, it's not depending on Social Security or a 401k. So I don't opt in a 401k, and I'm not thinking about Social Security. So what happens there is I either don't do anything to supplement, not even supplement, to replace, right? Because it's not supplementing. Because if I don't have it at all and I'm not depending on it, I'm not supplementing it. I'm replacing it. So if I don't replace Social Security or my 401k because I didn't opt into those things, then I don't have a retirement, right? So that's, you have that weighing over your head. Okay, that's the worst scenario. Best case scenario, I think anything you come up with that will actually replace retirement will end up being better than what you would have got with Social Security and the 401k. And that's just my opinion. That's how I kind of treated my life altogether. And again, I gave the example earlier of my putting myself in a more expensive apartment. I just think that's the best situation. Or it puts it, and if you're a motivated person and you're serious, which you should be, I think it'll get you the best results. It's just my opinion. But unfortunately, he says the good news ends there. So if you're worried about getting by on a 2.5 raise, this yields the best results. That's what I was going to say. So if you're worried about getting by on a 2.5% raise, take steps to improve your financial situation. It says start following a budget. It starts getting into all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. So it's very interesting to, read those things where it was, and even the good news wasn't really good news, right? The good news, they said, oh, well, if you get a lower cost of adjustment for Social Security, that means that inflation is cooling. No, because you said you just manipulated the data to say that you don't really need a higher adjustment of living. So I don't even think the good news was good news. I think the good news was bad news too. It was just a way to manipulate the words. So the moral of the story is, don't depend on Social Security. Don't think that that's going to save you when it comes to retirement. And then two, I would say, 401k, it's kind of like the same thing. If you are working, maybe, and you're not really you're not that investment savvy yet, which you should become. I don't think it's that hard these days to get your own brokerage account and start your own investing. Most people think it's like a whole thing where you have to be a financial guru to invest on your own. You really don't. All you need to do is open your brokerage account, right? Say, okay, each month, these are some blue chip stocks that I'm going to be dollar cost averaging in and be able to build my own portfolio. That way you could start building your own retirement. That way your 401k, your Social Security, they become supplements. That's kind of what we want to get to. We want to make those things supplements, and that what we got going on for ourselves becomes the main thing we use for retirement. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Make sure, so some housekeeping items. Make sure you guys go follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram is Mr. Financial Nutrition. TikTok is Financial Nutrition. I did stop posting on those platforms. I do have about like 60 posts on each, but I'm trying to figure out ways to. I'm going to be posting later. I'm taking a break off the Instagram and the TikTok, and I'm just focusing on the YouTube. But go follow me on those platforms. The more people we get on those platforms, the more you know. I'll once that number increases and I say, okay, we have a decent enough following on Instagram and TikTok, I'll probably prioritize getting some posts on there. But for the most part, I'll just be doing the live streams on YouTube. And then going into the new year, got to start working on like some more. I'll probably get back to editing some videos and putting them out on Sunday. So yeah, but that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good weekend.